Welcome, my dear students of Class 8, to this English class with me, your tutor, Atinyo Sekose. Today, we are going to discuss a very interesting topic. And I am sure by now you must have gone through your textbook, and maybe some of you, even if you did not get time to read it, I'm sure you must have flipped through the pages. So you must have come across a very funny looking cat in your text. And yes, that's right, we are going to talk about Macavity, the Mystery Cat, written by T.S. Eliot. And we are going to find out what makes this cat mysterious. As you can tell from the topic, Macavity, Macavity must be the name of the cat. And here, T.S. Eliot is saying that he is a very mysterious cat. Now, let's find out what makes it mysterious. Before we discuss about Macavity, let's first do a short exercise and think about your pets. We like to keep different kinds of pets, such as maybe a puppy, or maybe a cat, or maybe fish, or maybe even a squirrel. We like to keep different kinds of pets, such as maybe even an owl. So we like to keep them because they can be great companions and we also communicate with them. Do you ever communicate with your own pets? Maybe you find yourself, when your cat misbehaves, you find yourself saying, bad kitty. Or maybe when your puppy is looking very cute, maybe you will go and say, that is a very cute thing to do, you know? So those kind of things, we like to communicate with them, we like to take care of them, but at the same time, they can also be sometimes such a nuisance. And I'm sure you have many things that you can count on that list. For instance, maybe your puppy would go and knock over all your toys and chewed on it or spoiled it in that manner. So all sorts of mischief they can also commit. Now, this cat that we are going to talk about, that is Macavity, is very mischievous. At the same time, he is known to be a criminal and very mysterious. So we are going to find out what makes this cat, what kind of personalities or qualities that this cat possessed, in other words, that makes him a very mischievous and mysterious cat. Now let's read the poem together and find out, shall we? Macavity, the Mystery Cat. Macavity's a mystery cat. He is called the Hidden Paw, for he is the master criminal who can defy the law. He is the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair. For when they reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. So now that's our poem, and here we find that Macavity is known as the Hidden Paw. Now, why is he being called the Hidden Paw? Perhaps it's because he commits crimes and escapes very fast, and we never find out any clues in order to trace him back. So he is called the Hidden Paw. Now, he is also called the master criminal. Now, who is a master criminal? A master criminal is one who plans in such a way that they planned meticulously in such a way that they always escapes from the hands of the police. So that is our Macavity. He must be very clever and also very intelligent. He is also someone who defies the law. In other words, he has total disregard for law. He never respects the law and he resists and breaks laws. And that is why even the Scotland Yard and the flying squads find themselves in a very hopeless situation. Now, what is this Scotland Yard? Scotland Yard is known to be the best detective or investigating police force. And yet, even the Scotland Yards are quite baffled, they are confused because they cannot catch Macavity. And even the flying squad, in this case here, when we say flying squad, we can think about it in this way. The fastest and quickest response team in any police force. They can run very fast. They can go and catch criminals very fast. And yet, they are not able to catch our Macavity. So what happened is that they are in great confusion. They are in great despair. They are in great hopelessness. Because by the time they reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. Now let's find out more about Macavity. What is this, the scene of crime? When we say the scene of crime, it is the place where the crime was committed. And this is the place where policemen would go, or detectives would go, or agents in this case would go and try to gather evidence, data, in order to catch hold of the culprit. So that is the scene of crime. Now let's read the next stanza. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. He's broken every human law. He breaks the law of gravity. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare. Now, Macavity is someone who is very clever, who is very extraordinary. In other words, there is no one like Macavity. That's what the poet said. And he has broken every human law. Now, we all know that we live by human social laws. And if we go beyond that, or if we break such kind of laws, what happened is we become an outlaw. In other words, we are not appreciated in the society. And yet, Macavity is one who breaks every human law. And he is also extraordinary. Why? Because here it says that he breaks the law of gravity. Now, what is this law of gravity? I'm sure the name Newton comes to your mind, because the law of gravity is referring to the fact that anything that goes up must come down. Even if an aeroplane took off, at some point of time, it has to land. So we are all under this universal law, truth, a fact. And yet, Macavity can break this law. So that is why we can say that Macavity is no ordinary cat. And he also have the power of levitation. Now, what is this levitation? Levitation is the ability to be able to float above ground. And since he has this ability, the poet said that even a fakir would stare in surprise. Why? Because a fakir here is referring to those religious people who go and meditate for years, and after that they are able to gain such kind of ability, But Macavity seems to be having this power and seems to be using it quite easily. That's why even the fakir would stare in shock and in surprise. And when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. You may seek him in the basement, you may look up in the air, but I tell you once and once again, Macavity is not there. So that is our Macavity. He's very mischievous. He's wanted by the police. He's a criminal who breaks all sorts of law. And if you try to catch him, even the best police force are not able to catch him. And you may look for him everywhere. You may look for him up in the air. You may look for him underneath or underground. And yet, Macavity is not there. So that is the mystery about Macavity. Macavity is a ginger cat. He's very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought. His head is highly domed. So here we have a description of Macavity. I want you to pay close attention to this, because here we have a physical description of Macavity, and he has very distinctive, recognizable features. His appearance is such that he is a ginger cat, which means an orange colored cat. and is very tall and thin. At the same time, he has a very distinctive feature, that is his eyes are deeply placed in the eye socket. So his eyes are sunken in, and his brow is deeply lined with thought. His hat is highly domed. Now, this is a very funny description of a cat. He is given a comparison to someone who might be very intelligent with a very high or large forehead as well. Now, I want you to try this with me and try to think about something very serious. And if you do that, naturally, you would get lines on your brow or your forehead. So what happened is that because Macavity is always thinking very deeply, his brow is lined with thought. Isn't that a very funny description? And he has a very bad personal habit. That is, he never takes bath. His coat, referring to his fur, is dusty from neglect. His whiskers are uncombed. His whiskers here, it is referring to the beard that grows from the side of the cat's face. And he never combs his whisker. Now that's a very interesting description. Can a cat really comb its whisker? I want you to hold on to that thought. Now let's continue with the next stanza. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. Now we have another description of Macavity, and he is being compared to a snake. Now we all know that snakes are usually associated with slyness, poisonous, venomous, and so on, and yet slithering and yet very alert. So that is the creature that is being compared to Macavity. And Macavity moves in this manner, like a snake. And when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. So he is also very pretentious. He may pretend to be sleeping, but in reality, he's wide awake and ready to run off. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. For he's a fiend in feline shape, a monster of depravity. Now, Macavity here is being described in such a way that you will never find anyone like Macavity. And because remember, he has broken every human law and he never goes by the law, breaks them. So if we are not following the laws, what happened is we become immoral. And when we are immoral, when we go by doing what is bad all the way through, what happened is we are not so different from a monster. So that's why here the poet is comparing it to a monster as well. In fact, calling it monster of depravity. And you will find him in the shape of a feline that is belonging to the cat family. And this is why he is also being called as very evil, as a devil, a fiend in feline shape. He's actually a monster, a very clever fellow, but he is a cat in appearance. So that is our Macavity. Now, this means that Macavity, remember, he has got very distinctive features, and that's why if you happened to go to town, that is the by street or the square, in common places such as the street and in the square, you will be able to identify Macavity. Oh, there goes Macavity. Remember, he has got highly domed forehead and he has sunken eyes, and you remember he moves like a snake. So all these kind of things, we will be able to recognize him very easily. But what happened? But when a crime is discovered, then Macavity is not there. Where did Macavity go? The moment a crime is discovered, he had escaped. He's nowhere to be found. And that is why even the best police force are baffled by it. Even the best flying squad are not able to catch him. Now, that is our Macavity. That is why we can say that he is a criminal and wanted by the police, who can never be caught, who escape to places where nobody can find him, and he has got powers. Because of that power, he is able to escape or disappear, and that is why even the police force are not able to bring him to justice. Now, in our next class, we are going to find out what happens, where did Macavity go, and we are going to see whether we will be able to catch him or not. Here are some questions to baffle, but I'm sure it will not baffle you because I'm sure you are far more clever than Macavity. Is Macavity a cat, really? Who can Macavity be? I think we need a clue here. So Macavity, I'm sure you are thinking right now that Macavity is not really a cat, because a cat cannot levitate. A cat cannot be floating or escaping from crimes. Now, who is this Macavity? The poet had used a very special technique called personification, which means giving life-like qualities, that especially that of a human being. And we have here an example from our text that says, his brow is deeply lined with thoughts. Now, animals cannot be thinking things very deeply or seriously, but here it says that Macavity is doing just exactly that, and that he does not comb his whiskers and so on. These kind of habits that are attributed to human beings. So now let me give you a very simple example here. Maybe by the time you sit down for your study and to do your work, what happened is your eraser has a habit of disappearing. So you, out of exasperation, you say that, where did my eraser disappeared? It seems as though it has grown some legs and crawled away. So when you do that, you are giving lifelike qualities to your eraser. And we do that a lot in our daily conversation. I'm sure you would find out more on your own. Now, the next question. In the line, Macavity is not there. In fact, the line, Macavity is not there, is repeated how many times and why? I'm sure you know that it was repeated 4 times. And why? Could it be because Macavity is a master criminal? Or could it be because he has supernatural power? Or could it be because the poet wants to lay great emphasis on the fact that Macavity can escape? And with that, we have come to the end of our lesson. I hope you would take some time to read your text and work on some few exercises, but join me again in the next class because we are going to do some fun activities and we will try to catch hold of Macavity and bring him to justice once and for all.